Is bigger always better in business? For decades, the absolute ultimate goal for any ambitious company was just massive corporate scale. You eat up the competition, you diversify into literally every sector, and you build an empire. But what if that conventional wisdom is actually fundamentally flawed? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're totally challenging the traditional assumption that massive corporate scale is the ultimate endgame.
We are taking a really deep dive into an incredible analysis by Dr. Sofia Alvarez on a concept she calls the modular corporation. I'm so thrilled to have you here with us. We're going to look at how a specific, honestly seemingly standard piece of corporate news out of Europe actually signals a massive global shift in how successful businesses are built. We're not just talking about one company's balance sheet here. We're talking about a total corporate reinvention.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First, we'll look at the buyer catalyst. Then we'll explore the end of the conglomerate era, followed by the rise of modular corporations. From there, we'll pivot to the implications for African markets, and finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with building for continuous adaptation.
Section 1. The Bayer Catalyst. Restructuring a life sciences giant. Every massive macroeconomic shift usually has a tipping point, and ours begins with a German life sciences giant.
So, the specific news that dropped is that Bayer announced it's placing its Roundup business into a separate operating unit. And you might be wondering, why does this matter so much? Well, the Roundup business has generated years of intense litigation costs and just massive uncertainty for Bayer. By isolating it operationally, Bayer is basically looking to create immediate strategic flexibility. They want to aggressively project the performance and the appeal of their other core operations, like pharmaceuticals and crop science. To really get why this is so huge, we have to think back to 2018. That was the year Bayer originally acquired Monsanto, which is what brought the Roundup brand under its massive umbrella in the first place. This current separation represents the absolute most significant strategic shift for the company since that super controversial acquisition. And while they haven't announced a formal total corporate breakup, the direction they're traveling in is just unmissable.
Moving on to Section 2. The end of the conglomerate era, and reevaluating the power of scale. We're zooming out now, shifting from the specific Bayer news to the broader macroeconomic trend that is literally sweeping global business right now.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact shift we're talking about. Think about the old paradigm. Corporate diversification was the ultimate strength. You wanted scale, you wanted shared resources, and diversified integration to balance out cyclical industries. But under the new paradigm, investors are demanding optionality. They are rewarding companies that offer clear valuations and easy separation, especially if one specific division suddenly creates a disproportionate legal or financial risk.
The harsh reality is that traditional conglomerates are facing persistent legal risks, rapidly changing capital markets, and incredibly fast technological disruption. Corporate resilience is just no longer defined by how big you are. Actually, that heavy, bulky integration of the past makes companies highly vulnerable to all these modern threats. Being an enormous, deeply intertwined conglomerate is starting to look way less like an impenetrable fortress and a whole lot more like a major liability.
Which brings us to Section 3. The rise of modular corporations, where agility absolutely triumphs over size. Here is the core definition we really need to grasp from Dr. Alvarez's analysis. The modular corporation is an organization designed to adapt quickly to regulatory change, litigation, and tech disruption by specifically isolating risks. I want you to really think about what this means. Historically, breaking up a company or separating a division was seen as a total failure, right? Like a retreat or a weakness. Not anymore. This modular design turns that completely outdated concept on its head. Being able to easily uncouple parts of your business is now a strategic superpower, and it's called optionality.
Let's walk through the strategic advantages real quick, because this is exactly why global capital markets are actively rewarding these modular traits over clunky integration. First off, capital can be allocated far more efficiently. Second, high-growth divisions aren't dragged down by slower ones. They actually get clearer standalone valuations. Third, exactly like we saw with Bayer, operational risks become so much easier to isolate. Fourth, strategic partnerships are just way simpler to execute when you aren't dealing with a convoluted corporate web. And finally, investors gain significantly greater transparency into the actual business performance.
Okay, Section 4. Implications for African markets, specifically regarding governance and global capital. Now, you might be wondering, why does a corporate restructuring in Germany matter so much to emerging markets? Well, it matters tremendously.
As Dr. Sofia Alvarez points out, African companies should not view this purely as a European corporate story. So the crucial point here is that global capital is becoming highly selective. When international investors look at emerging markets today, they aren't just looking at the profit margins anymore. They are meticulously assessing governance structures. The rules of attraction for global capital are shifting everywhere, and emerging markets absolutely must pay close attention.
And this pressure to adapt extends way beyond life sciences. Major sectors like mining, financial services, telecommunications, manufacturing, and infrastructure are facing intense pressure to simplify. These are the absolute engines of African economies, and historically, they involve incredibly complex, tangled holding structures. Moving forward, businesses across all these complex sectors are going to face the exact same pressures Bayer's facing right now. Simplify those structures, improve disclosure, and forcefully separate business units that carry materially different risk profiles.
This is a massive wake-up call, especially if you're an entrepreneur or part of a generational enterprise. African family businesses must evolve beyond historic structures to attract investment and ensure succession. For decades, preserving a really complex, historic corporate structure was viewed as protecting a legacy, but future competitiveness relies entirely on strategic clarity rather than organizational complexity. The companies that will successfully attract international capital are the ones that can prove they're lean, transparent, and built for the future.
Let's head into our final section, Section 5, Building for Continuous Adaptation and the New Executive Mindset. We've talked extensively about the structural changes, but to actually execute them requires a complete rewiring of boardroom psychology. Now, what's really interesting here is the clear contrast between the old way of thinking and the new imperative. In the past, boards sought around asking, how do we make our business larger? They built structures intended for absolute permanence. But moving forward, the goal of the future is asking, how do we make our business more resilient? We're moving from a mindset of building for permanence to designing for continuous adaptation. It's a fundamental and honestly necessary shift in executive thinking.
And the reason for this dramatic shift is crystal clear. Flexibility is a competitive advantage against geopolitical fragmentation, AI disruption, and consistently higher capital costs. When we look back at the buyer catalyst we started with, we really have to realize it wasn't just a reactionary response to a legal challenge. It was a massive, flashing early signal of how leaders must actively prepare for the unyielding uncertainties of the next decade.
Which leaves us with one final provocative question to consider. Are you building for permanence or continuous adaptation? Whether you're analyzing global markets, investing in emerging sectors, or running your own family business, the era of the bulky, inflexible conglomerate is fading fast. Optionality is the new standard. I challenge you to apply this lesson of the modular corporation to your own business environment. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay adaptable, and I will catch you next time.